Hello,
Welcome
or welcome back,
to the Womanly Podcast,
where we embrace womanhood in its entirety. From the hard and awkward conversations
to the silly and embarrassing moments.
an effort to reclaim and redefine what it means to be womanly in this crazy, wacky world. I'm Delana, the neutral one.
I'm Katie, the morbid one.
And I'm Madeline, the other one. And we're so excited that you've joined us today because there's room for you at our table.
So, grab your favorite drink and let's have a conversation.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. What y'all drinking?
We are
Collectively drinking Hatch chili margaritas.
We each have our own. They're not like sharing it with the comically large straws or anything.
Yeah.
Although that would be more fun.
That would be more fun.
Yeah.
Next time we happen to get bartending service from Delana, we're gonna request the large straws.
The large fish bowl with the straws.
Oh yeah.
I've never gotten
For
to
sure.
have one of those drinks.
Guys, we don't have our candle.
Oh my god.
Everything's wrong.
Ah.
We've got to fix it.
Oh. This is where you play the elevator music.
Everything feels right again.
So every week we like to check in with each other in a creative way. Just kind of either get to know each other better or see how we're doing. And for this week, what was the last picture you took? What was the context and how did it make you feel? I need to pull up what
I do
the last
too.
picture I took was. Oh my goodness, I got a good one.
The last picture I took was of my driver's license, because I was sending it to Cord for insurance purposes and stuff like that. So not very fun, but it was fine because I was getting something important done, I guess. Made me feel good. So
Yeah.
this
Made
is
you feel good?
My picture.
Oh,
my
yeah.
little-
She has a really good driver's license picture.
She does.
It's like 12 years old.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
not that old, but it's
But
an
you
old
know,
one.
Most people look like they got like hit by a
Mhm.
bus in their driver's license. You just look good. You just look like yourself.
Thanks.
Just normal.
Just normal.
Yeah.
You just look
My normal
normal
state isn't looking like getting hit by a bus. That's how I feel.
No. You just internalize all of that.
Well, now I feel really much better about that picture I took of my picture on my driver's license.
The last
impressed.
picture I took was of a cherry blossom LaCroix. And I sent it to my friend who loves cherry blossoms, and it made me happy to share that with her.
Oh, that's sweet.
Nice. This was my last picture of my cat
Oh,
You
Parsley.
sent that to me.
I sent it to Madeline because he was like, did Madeline send you that picture of Chives that you had sent to both of us?
Mhm.
I didn't know that you had sent it to me yet. And so
Yeah.
I told him no. I was like, no, I didn't get it because I didn't check my messages. And then I sent this picture to him and he goes, you need to send that to Madeline. Because
Yeah.
it was like kind of similar, I
Yeah.
guess.
Oh.
The picture of Chives that I sent, she was in my bathroom with me in the morning while I was getting ready for work, and she was on the bathroom counter. And this picture of Parsley, who is, if you're new, Chives' mother,
Mm-hmm.
is of Parsley on the bathroom counter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they look really similar. It's just that Parsley is gray and white and Chives is black and white. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
that was sweet.
they're going to look exactly like each other when they
I
grow
think
up.
so.
other
Yeah.
than the gray
She's
and
just
the
going to
black.
look a little bit
Mhm.
more, like she's going to be the more faded one.
Yeah, she's going to be the faded black.
Yeah.
The aged
Yeah,
black.
The
Yeah.
washed black.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's sweet.
Okay. So for this episode, we had a different one planned, which we'll just do later because I texted Katie and Madeline last night and I was like, guys, I just connected so many dots because I was talking to Sam last night about this long-standing issue that I have had, and I just started crying, and I was like, I didn't realize how deep this was for me. I texted them, and I was like, I feel really compelled to share this on the podcast. So how about we just do a girl talk episode, which might just turn into
A Delana talk episode.
putting Delana on a pedestal for a night.
You know what? We all need a night like that every once in a
Yes.
while.
True.
So we happily gift you that.
It's your
Yeah.
time to shine.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to share this because I like sharing my life with you guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, but then also I wanted to share it here because I felt like maybe it could help somebody else who's trying to navigate a lot of things in their life like we all are.
Mm-hmm.
And if maybe just me opening up and just being honest with some of the places that I've been and some of the confusing problems that I've faced throughout my life, and neural pathways that my brain decided to build, that this might help you move forward on some things or understand yourself or whatever. So I want to go through a very particular timeline because a lot of this overlaps and like only really makes sense in a certain timeline. So I guess I'll just start telling.
Go for it. You've got a captive audience.
Yes. I have literally a whole page of notes right here if you're watching on YouTube. Like the entire page all the way to the bottom.
Preparation. We love to see it.
Yes. So I have always struggled with structure, which this is hilarious because you had just sent me that Taylor Swift video where she was talking about how far in advance she plans like her
she does
Easter eggs that she's going to leave,
teasing things
and how like
advance.
all these things intertwine, which real Swifties, we've known that. We know how she's the master of the Easter eggs. Yeah. And so me and Katie are huge Swifties.
Which is why we're so excited for her new album, Midnight.
Can't wait. So yes, Madeline had just sent me this where she was talking about, how far ahead she was planning and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, this is literally you. Like, you just like...
She said something about how she's like the Easter eggs that she leaves are like a subtle flex on planning, basically.
Yes,
and I was
exactly.
I was like, yes, that's Delana 100%.
Yeah.
Not only is it Taylor Swift, but it's this,
Yeah, like we've had little meetings together where like we are trying to figure out our lives while doing this podcast, and how we want to approach certain things and stuff like that. And I think it was the last meeting that we had that I like literally drew out an entire timeline because I was like, I have to, it's been so confusing because I feel like I have to have structure in order for my brain to understand anything. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have had a personal disdain for like a daily structure of any kind. Like I just want to wake up in the morning and I just want to do whatever I feel like doing at whatever moment, which doesn't sound like me, right? You would think that I am the person that wants like every part of my day planned out and like, but for
you're a big picture person.
But for some reason, I just cannot, like I get into this mental, I feel like the thought of me having like a planned out day literally feels hurtful, which that will like make sense later actually. So, and especially like I've learned that my very probable ADHD that I never got an official diagnosis for, but my doctor was like, you should look into that.
Yeah.
It's been so hard because like we need people with ADHD, like we desperately need structure because the way that you put it one time was like nothing exists if it's not right in front of you.
Right. Yeah.
So like we have to have structure in order to function. And I felt this tension of like this disdain for structuring my day while at the same time absolutely desperately needing structure in order to get literally anything done.
Yeah.
Like I feel most of my days recently feel the most unproductive that they've ever felt.
So it's like a necessary evil, basically. That's how you would qualify structure for you. It sounds like it's a necessary evil. It's necessary, but it's not like something you feel good about.
Like within my work life, I really love structure and I love planning things. But it's just systems. Been like, yes, I love systems. But it's like literally like having a schedule. I don't even want to think about having a morning routine or going to the gym at the same time every single day and stuff like that. Like that just makes me want to like run so far the other direction.
Yeah.
But I need that. Like I need that in order to actually get anything done that I want to do. Mm. And I've struggled with this for like really my entire life. But I've known about this struggle for the past, especially ever since I've been married. So like maybe the past 8 years or so, because Sam is a creature of habit and structure. Like he just will do the same thing every single day and he doesn't And I'm just like, I don't freaking know how you do it. Like, different animal over there. So I have been feeling like this awful tension of like needing this thing, but also having this disdain for it, but then also having this love for it, you know? And I'm like, what? It's so freaking confusing. Another thing that I had been hearing about during all of this over the past year was the idea of like healing your inner child. You've talked about it.
Oh yeah, big fan.
And I've heard about it a lot on TikTok. And literally, I kid you not, every single time I heard somebody talk about it, I was like, I don't know what what does that even mean?
Right.
Like that, like those words. And I've heard people like talk about it and explain it and do things like share what they were doing to heal their inner child and stuff like that. And, everything that I heard about it, I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And like, I get the concept of it, but I didn't feel any sort of connection or need for that myself, that I was just kind of like, I feel like I'm like, first of all, sometimes I feel like I'm not even connected to my inner child, which probably says a lot.
Yeah. Red flags.
Yeah. Second of all, I'm like, well, okay, let me clarify, because over the past few months, I have felt a lot more like, almost like the only way I can describe it is like my older self has started like hugging my inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyways, up until last night, really, none of that really fully made sense to me. You know, I've dealt with this whole like loving structure, needing structure, hating structure thing. And then also like being aware of my whole idea of healing my inner child, but not really feeling connected to it. And all I knew was that over the past, especially year or so, I started feeling really burnt out, because fun fact, September 6th of last year was whenever I quit my YouTube channel, because I was just feeling so burnt out.
It's already been a year.
It's already, dude, it feels like 2 years to me. Like, I was talking to Sam about this last night, and
it does kind of feel like longer than that.
Yeah. And I was like, whenever I told him, I was like, I know this feels way longer, but it's been a year since.
Yeah.
And it feels so much longer to me. It feels like 2 or 3 years, but yeah, it's been a year.
Wow.
A little over a year now. So I started like really feeling that burnout, and that's whenever I decided to quit my YouTube channel. I just felt that the amount of effort that I was putting forward, like I wasn't getting that in return, but more so that I just didn't feel like me anymore. So I quit it. And then that time, cause well, you guys know now, but the audience, most of you guys probably don't know, the time that it requires to be a content creator is so demanding.
Yeah.
If you want to be at all relevant to the way that, you know, good content behaves on social media. And so it was incredibly demanding. It was literally like having a second full-time job. And once I quit that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have like all this free time feels so good. Like I can just like have a life and just take it slow. And when I'm done with work for the day, I'm done with work, you know, I'm not like going off and working on another project of some sorts. And I was like, oh man, this feels good. And I started feeling like this craving for more of that.
And then 4 months later, you started a podcast.
Yeah, I did. Fun fact. That's also typical of me, by the way. Where
Me too.
Like, yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, free time? No, I don't want that anymore.
too many decisions have to be made there.
Yeah, but I enjoyed that free time, started craving more of that, and I started taking longer vacations. Like I just felt like this deep exhaustion and burnout. And I was just kind of like, every vacation that I took, I wanted to take 2 weeks, just like go off and not have to think about anything, which usually I worry about work a lot during vacation, but I was so burnt out that I was like, if y'all fall apart while I'm gone, I don't even care. Like, that's how burnt out I was. I was just kind of like, if at anything, nothing crash and burn, but that's where I was mentally, you know? I lost my cat during that time, which was really, really hard. And I'm glad that I wasn't creating content at that time, because I quit my YouTube channel right before we adopted Bo, or right after we adopted her. I don't remember if it was right before or right after, but we ended up adopting her around that. It was right after. Yeah. Which meant that I got done with work and I spent a lot more time with Bo than I otherwise would have. Yeah. But eventually that following February, we lost Bo, and that was a hard hit. She was a very, very special little animal. And honestly, around that same time, we also started going through the hardest season in our marriage that we had ever gone through. Like, there was just there were just some issues that were really, really, there were so many layers to them, and so hard for us to see each other on, that it was around that same time that we were like having a lot of fights, having a lot of long discussions and stuff like that. And it was the hardest part of our marriage we had ever gone through. Also during that time, had a really, like, this whole year just like piled one thing on top of another. During that time, had a really heartbreaking and really hard break with a very close friend of mine, where we're friends again now, which is great. We've made amends, and she handled everything really, really well. But it was just really hard to see that and experience that. And during all of this, which I'm sure fed all of my gut issues, I was dealing with the peak of all my gut issues as well. And I was losing a lot of weight. I couldn't eat full meals, you know. Some days I couldn't hardly eat at all, you know. It was just, I felt nauseous and sick all the time. And then soon after that, I started my SIBO journey. My doctor diagnosed me with SIBO, and which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, causes a lot of issues. And I had to go on an incredibly restrictive diet in order to heal my gut. And I had to be on that for about 3 months.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
3 months. Yeah. Mentally and emotionally way too long.
Yeah.
But it did work, and I got over SIBO, and I still haven't struggled with it since, which has been amazing. I thought that I was struggling with it again for a second there, but I was just eating too much protein. It was kind of funny.
Calm down, Delina.
Yeah, I know. So, and then soon after that started going down, which this all happened recently as of when we're filming this, was all the job crap that you guys, you know, experienced with me that I went through. The company that I was part of previously had gotten acquired by another company. I didn't feel good about moving forward in the new company. It just didn't feel like a good fit for me personally. And I decided to leave. So that was a very hard and sudden change that I didn't want and didn't expect. Wasn't thrilled with how I was. Never mind, I'm not going to say that. Yeah. Just going to leave it at that. Yeah. So it's definitely been one of the hardest years of my life. Like, just hands down, definitely one of the hardest past 12 months of my life. But all of this was feeding that craving of just kind of like, well, I just want more free time, I guess is the way to put it. Like, I just want, I wanted to just, like, for the first time in my life, like, I just felt like I wanted to just exist. Like, I didn't want to be needed. I can put words to it now. Of course, I couldn't say that. I didn't know how to explain it whenever
I just felt overwhelmed. And
and I was overwhelmed by everything that I was juggling, and it was just like one thing after the other. And came to this breaking point where I was starting to have conversations with Sam where I was just kind of like, Like, I can't explain it. I just want to quit my job. I just want to quit my job, and I don't even want to get another job. I have another job now, so we're good. But
good.
yeah, I just want to quit my job, and I just want to exist, which is so far from who I was.
Yeah.
You know, like, I love working. I love business. I'm passionate, and Sam and I are both like entrepreneurs, and we have big plans, and it was just so out of character for me to just be like, I literally don't want to do anything. I just want to exist, you know, and just like, is it okay for me to just exist and not have to be trying to do something all the time?
No. You're in America.
You're Delana.
Yeah. And so I chalked all of it up to burnout, which part of it was, a large part of it was just overwhelm and burnout of me, you know, being in a mentality for such a long time that I have to prove my worth. Part of it was that. I'm going to give credit where credit was due. Absolutely, part of it was that. As all these things kind of piled up, over the past few weeks, for some reason, I started thinking about this very particular part of my childhood. It just kept replaying in my head, and I didn't know why. I was like, why do I keep thinking about this one period of time in my childhood that just kept replaying as this craving to just like quit my job and just exist and just like not have adult responsibilities, you know, and stuff like that. I was thinking about this period in my childhood whenever my mom and my dad separated, like really officially. There had been a couple times before that where my mom left, and then she came back. But this was like an official, like, I'm leaving and I'm taking the kids, like we are separating, I'm getting my own apartment. It was the first one that I remember of her doing. And I was 15 or 16 at the time. I think I was 15. Yeah, I was 15 whenever this happened. And so she took me and my two younger siblings and moved into an apartment, and that was the first that they were separated for a year before she got back together and we moved back in. But during that year, it was a slow evolve of my mom, and I don't think that she meant to do this, and if she listens to this episode, I don't think it was like intentional.
God, I can almost predict what you're about to say right now.
That she slowly started treating me like slightly like a spouse. Like, she would come home sometimes and she would get mad at me and have arguments with me in ways that you would like have arguments with a spouse. Like, you would get on to them for not doing something while you were gone. Like, they just should have known that they were supposed to do that because they're the other parent in the house and we have to pull weight. And I felt like I was being treated like that, but I was only 15. And it was a slow evolve that, like, during the last probably 6 months that I was in there, I just didn't want to live there. And I actually eventually, I couldn't put words to it at the time, but towards the end of her living there, I wanted to live with my dad for a little while. And I think for the last month that I was there, or something like that, I decided to go and stay with my dad. Now I can see it, you know, hindsight's 2020, and you can like put words to what you're feeling. But of course, back then I didn't know. I just knew that I didn't feel good where I was. And so I was thinking about this time in my childhood, and it just kept replaying in my head. And I think that's because that was the perfect picture of like that event, and that time in my life was like the perfect picture painted for how I kind of felt all throughout my childhood. Was that I was the oldest daughter, and I still remember like specific moments where like my dad would be locked in his room, my mom would be at work, and my brothers would be playing video games or out with their friends or whatever, and it would be up to me to make sure that my little brother and sister had dinner that night.
Yeah.
And like somebody made dinner for them. I remember a moment in particular where I was like, my mom was away at work, my dad was in his room with the door locked, and my brothers were playing video games, and I was like Tacey and Josh need to eat. Like,
yeah.
nobody's gonna like, and I was probably like 8 years old at the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so I like made them the only things I knew how to make. And
Which were?
macaroni and cheese and maybe hot dogs or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
So I remember those moments. I may have been a little bit older. I could have been like 10 or 12, but still far too young to be worrying about what your little brother and sister are going to be eating that night on a regular weeknight.
Yep.
And so whenever I was talking to Sam last night about all of this, I realized, because really what brought up the conversation was that I was like, I just don't know why I cannot hold my own structure. Like I can hold a structure for everybody else at work. I can create a killer structure and stuff like that. Like it's just the way that my brain works. Why can't I adapt to a structure myself? And I and it was really weighing on me because there are things that I want to accomplish. I want our podcast to be successful. I want to train for a bikini competition. I want to perform well at my job, you know, like all the things that are just passions of mine and responsibilities of mine. And I want to clean my house consistently and stuff like that, like those adult responsibilities. And I was struggling so much that, you know, Sam pulls a lot of the weight in our household because he cleans way more than I do. And I know that that's like opposite of what most women experience in their marriage. He like keeps the house together. I do the deep cleans every once in a while, but he literally like keeps the house together. And that's weighing on me that I'm like, I just always feel like I don't have the time because I don't have a good structure in my life. I became really confused. And then it was like, suddenly this full culmination last night where I was like, I have been like having this disdain for structure because that was my way of trying to still be a kid. Like I didn't want to adapt myself to and hold myself to a structure because it felt like I was being what I needed to be for everyone else. And I couldn't be that same thing to myself because I was the only one that could let myself be a kid at any capacity. Everybody else was just going to make me feel like a parent or put responsibilities on me because that's what jobs do and that's what relationships do and stuff like that, is that you have certain responsibilities and expectations that you hold up. And I, you know, during this time, like I even told you guys, like I don't want to edit episodes anymore. Like I just was like everything, all responsibilities, I was just trying to like fling off of my plate. And it got to this point where I was talking about how I wanted to quit my job, which was big red flag for me because that's so unlike me, right? And so that's where I was like at this point where I was like, I need to figure out what this is. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, this is how all these years I've been trying to like make space for myself to be a kid, or like make space for my inner child, basically. Like this craving that I had to just want to exist. And it's just okay for me to just like do what I do in the day and not have to worry about everybody else's expectations of me constantly. And all the responsibilities and everything. I've realized that was why, was because that was stolen from me as a child. And needless to say, healing your inner child makes sense now.
I'm happy you learned. I promise there's more.
I literally told Sam last night, I was like, oh, this is what everybody means whenever they're talking about healing their inner child.
Welcome to the club.
Sam made a really good point that he was like, I do think there are parts of your childhood where you just kind of have to grieve and let go.
Oh yeah,
like
absolutely.
There's not, you're not going to be able to like,
there's not purpose in every bit of it.
Yeah. But for this, there was obviously something that my body and soul were like calling to that I needed. But here's the thing, even after realizing that, I was like, then what do I do with that? Like, because still the idea of structure doesn't feel good, but I can't, I'm an adult. I have responsibilities. I don't actually want to quit my job, you know? Like if I did quit my job, it might feel good for a time, but
you get bored.
I get bored and I don't think it's ultimately what I really want. And it's not even feasible for the long term anyways.
No.
And, I want to be a contributing member to society because I am able-bodied and able to be a contributing member to society in those ways. And so it's not ultimately what I want. And I was like, well, then what do I do? Like, I still don't feel good. Like, I'm not like, oh, now that I've had this realization, I want to have a structure.
Yeah, it's not an immediate fix.
No, I was like, then what, it felt like there was like, almost more to be said in that realm. And I'm sure that even after this, it's like still going to be a longer journey.
Oh no, this is when you start the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I also realized is that I think that there is a point where it kind of crosses over, and where it was going for me, where it does cross over into like, do these things that help your inner child, that resolve some things, that bring the same joy that maybe you had. You know, there's a lot of different things that maybe healing your inner child would encompass. But there was this line that it was starting to cross where it's like, I could see how you could easily like cross over into just trying to chase a, what am I trying to say? Like trying to chase this, resolve of some sort that you can't really resolve right now in your adult life. But there was something that I just felt like I needed to do something about this part of my childhood. It was like this anxiousness. There's something I need to do about this part of my childhood that was so gone for me, you know? Which really, if you think about it, it's kind of just like, I don't think I had many years where I didn't feel like I was part adult, part child, you know? And so,
me either.
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of my childhood that I felt part adult, or I had to be part adult in. And so I think really what I was chasing here was just to feel like a kid. Once I got to this point of wanting to quit my job, I was like, there's something else that needs to kind of be discussed, or there's something else that needs to be said or whatever here, that because I feel like that would start to cross over into like this unhealthy trying to chase something that's just gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone, and not necessarily in a sad way. But then this verse came into my head that my therapist gave me a long time ago whenever I told him that I had reached a point in my anxiety and depression journey that I was just kind of like, the reward does not outweigh the cost at this point. Like, it's just like at that point I was actually suicidal, and that was partly due to my medication that I was taking at the time. But at that point I was actually suicidal. I hadn't acted on anything, but I entertained a lot of thoughts deeply, and I was smart and wise enough at that point that I was like, I know that if I'm having these thoughts and that they are this deep and this active, like I would be sitting there and I would be thinking about them, and it was like my body felt threatened. My heart would start racing because my body felt threatened by my own thoughts. I was like, I know I need to talk to somebody about this, and I did, and we're good. But I am not one to band-aid issues with Bible verses, but my therapist shared this at a time that was so right, in which he shared Joel 2:25 with me, which says, the Lord restores to you the years that the locusts have eaten. And whenever he said that to me, I just started bawling, because at that point I was like, it just feels like there's all these years in my life that are just gone. Like they're just gone and either buried under depression and anxiety, or they're gone because I didn't get to be a kid, you know, and all those things that they were just, it just felt like they were gone or damaged or not good for whatever reason it was. And I thought about that verse again last night because I feel like I was like chasing this thing that it was going to be a never ending battle of trying to be a kid again, you know, in that realm, and to like negate responsibilities. Like, that's just not, I'm an adult now. I have adult responsibilities that I have to uphold. But how did I do that whenever it felt like it was like in some ways killing me inside, you know? And then that verse came to mind, and it was like, I realized that I was trying to redeem my own story. And by doing that and getting, you know, if I kept going down that path, like it just would have been a never ending battle of trying to redeem my own story, when ultimately, like, the Lord will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten, and that's not my job to redeem that. And that I have to now, my job now is to be a good steward of the time and the responsibilities and the beautiful friggin' life that God has given me, and all the weight and responsibilities that come with that. And that's where I am now. And I think it's all going to be like it's all going to be a process, because there's still part of that I'm like, okay, got it. Yeah. How do I practically do this?
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it was one of the biggest breakthroughs that I feel like I've had in my life with this one just persistent issue that I had, that I just didn't understand and I couldn't make sense of, that I feel like I finally freaking understand it. I finally understand it, and I finally have uncovered, like, now me and this issue are like speaking the same language, you know? Yeah. Before it was just like shouting, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying, man. Like, take Duolingo or something. Like, but yeah, so that's what I realized, and that's where I am. And
I have to tell you, I've got freaking chills, because I said that I could predict where it was going, and it is like freaking mind blowing how similar of a human being you and I are.
Just
because
cloned.
Like all three of us are oldest daughters. All three of us are, you know, we have younger siblings. A lot of us we all have younger sisters. And so I think to an extent, a lot of us can really feel what that's like, because even if you have 4 older brothers and you've got 1 younger sibling, you're the oldest daughter, the expectation on you is so different.
It's so different.
So I think all 3 of us can definitely feel that. And I know there's a lot of things that I relate with. I know there's a lot of things in what you said that Katie relates with, for sure. But I mean, I've never heard that Bible verse before, but
wow,
I hadn't either.
You hadn't?
I hadn't until my therapist gave it to me.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And you saying that it's not your story to redeem is hugely powerful, impactful for me to hear.
It is my story, but it's not my job to redeem.
It's not your job to redeem. That's hugely impactful for me. And in fact, it's something that I, over the last handful of years, have been dealing with in my own way. And even in the last week, I've had a couple situations with family where I have emotionally and verbally stated that I do not want responsibility over certain things that should not be my responsibility, and that they need to deal with it. And that was, Katie knows, I mean, that wrecked me for days, because it's so hard for me to combat that, because that's where I've been my whole life, is to take responsibility over what other members of the family are doing and feeling and lacking and whatever else. And I've, for most of my life, for as long as I can remember, not just because that's a position I've been more or less placed in, but because that's my personality, is to jump in and try to fill a space and see what I can do to try to remedy things and make things better. And so it's been a nature and a nurture thing for me. And I mean, I still 28 years old trying to work through pushing back on that a little bit, because there's habits that have been formed, and there's not so much expectations as people just have learned to rely on certain things. And I had to decide several years ago that I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't, and I got to choose about how much or how little I could give. And I struggled really badly for a couple of days last week, because similar situation, I had to stand up to somebody that I love and love deeply and have been a right hand to for most of my life. And it was very difficult for me, even though I've been trying for years to break those cycles. And it took me down for a couple of days because of it. So it's just wild how very similar you and I are. I literally could predict what you were about to say. And I was, I go back to, I was 14. That's the year,
similar
year for me
too.
that I kind of see all of that coming to a head, basically. And knowing that it was many years before all of that, but 14. So
Wow. You just shared, like, I feel like a large chunk of your testimony.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I really appreciate you sharing all of that with us, with all of us. And I know that you're really gonna speak to a lot of people's hearts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel, I mean, after having talked through all of that, do you kind of feel like, I know you really felt compelled to share. Does it feel like you've taken another step?
Oh, 100%.
Good.
It was so heavy for me whenever I was talking to Sam last night. It was so heavy for me after coming to the realization, and it's almost like all of these neuro pathways, or I don't know, it's like everything just connected all at once. And it was such an intense experience that my chest, I was like, I don't know if I'm okay. Like, I just, like, my chest felt so heavy, and I felt like I was either going to have a heart attack or a panic attack or something. Yeah. And I was like going like trying to like breathe and stuff like that, because it was just like, so my body was like trying to process all of it. Yeah. And but after that, my chest felt lighter. Like, once I got past this like intense, like, oh my gosh, my body was like releasing all of this. I felt so much lighter, and I told Sam last night, I was like, whew, I feel so much better now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know like what that's gonna mean, of course, practically moving forward. But I think that I honestly think the first little baby steps in all of it is going to be me waking up in the mornings and just not letting my brain instantly go to like, I just want to exist, you know? I just like, don't want to have responsibility, because that's where my brain goes every single morning, is that like, I just wish that I could like clock out of life almost, you know, or just clock out of being an adult, which I know that all of us experience that at some level, of course. Like, being an adult is hard. It's hard having responsibilities and expectations and stuff like that, but we're not talking about,
it's not surface level.
It's not that thing that everyone experiences. This is a deep-seated issue that like culminated over an entire childhood and perpetuated throughout adulthood. And it was so kind of funny how the adulthood, just being an adult, kind of fed the childhood issue. And
the way that other adults, as you were a child, were doing, you assume that role for yourself.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. But now that you say that, Sam said last night, he was like, you know what's so cool about this is that like, you may not have kids yourself, but like, now you get to not to be that to the next generation. You know, like we may not have our own kids, or maybe we'll adopt, you know, but he's like, even your nieces and your nephews, like you get to be the place where like they don't have to feel like an adult. You can be, if nothing else, these little glimpses, you know, of a place where they could just be a kid.
Well, not only that, but you get to be that for your inner child. You get to be, and they call it reparenting. It's a legitimate thing in therapy, is reparenting. And it's a way for you to get the chance. Part of inner child therapy is it's a way for you to get the chance to be for yourself what others couldn't be, or you know, what you haven't been able to be for yourself for years. So I'd encourage you to kind of look into that a little bit too, because it's not just you. Because I think whenever you being the person you are and the struggles that you're talking about with having to give so much of yourself to other people, it's a beautiful thing to think of it as now you've got the chance to change how you approach and handle other people. But you're probably going to do that anyway. This is a chance for you to change your approach on how you handle yourself. And be kind and gentle with yourself, and give yourself space and all of that. Because I think to an extent, whenever you're so caught up in the expectation and the responsibility, as well as the perceived expectations and perceived responsibilities, because it's so much more convoluted than just what is, that you forget to take care of yourself a little bit. And I think whenever you get to the point where you're wanting to quit life, more or less, maybe it's not like actually ending it, but it's more like, I just need to stop. I've been there.
Exactly.
Whenever you are just in the thought process of, I just need everything to stop. I need to stop. I need everybody else to stop. I just need a stop for a while. Sometimes that message is exactly what it sounds like. And to take some time and figure things out in the way that you've done, hopefully can give you a chance to treat yourself in a little bit of a different way.
I think that I love how you said that, like, this is my chance to reparent myself and just kind of be what I needed. What I needed back then, you know,
as a child.
As a child. But I think that the first steps are just going to be like me waking up and just being like, the Lord will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. Like, it's not your job to try to, like, I have to hold both of those things at the same time. Like, that's why I feel like now, what I said earlier, like, now I feel like I'm like hugging my inner child. You know?
Well, and reparenting can be reminding yourself of your responsibilities in the matter and God's responsibilities in the matter as well. It's not fully taking charge.
So
you know what I mean?
It's not like one or the other.
The one verse that I love, and it's actually funny I'm saying this at this table because it really became an impressionable verse for me whenever Katie and I went on a mission trip to Joplin, Missouri after the tornado that hit.
I remember.
God, this has probably been 12, 13 years now. It's been a long time ago, but there was one verse that they mentioned quite a bit, and it was Psalm 147:3, where he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And that has always stuck in my mind as being something that whenever you're in a really, and it may not be a hurtful place, although you did talk about hurts and hurting, but he is there to heal and bind and put salves and everything on whatever ails you. And there's so much comfort in that because you don't have to tell anybody. Right? Like, he knows exactly what that is. And I think that process of him doing that also is what gives us the chance to understand in a certain way.
And you said a little while ago, like, that heaviness in your chest was just like, you were just gonna, like, explode. You thought you were, those are such holy moments. You know what I mean? Like, even though it's like can be like scary, the thing that happens afterward, I think if you just like let God do the work, like you've obviously done already since last night. Like I can already tell. That relief is like I said, like it's a holy moment.
Yeah.
Because you've had this like tension you didn't even know was there, and like God just revealed that to you.
Yeah.
And so
helped
now
take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, it's gonna be a lot of work moving forward.
Yeah,
But
it is.
I feel really, it's like so the feeling that now so much of your life makes so much sense. Like it's just crazy. It's crazy how you can go through 8 years of therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Still not be fixed.
so god dang it, where's all my money going? I've paid to be fixed by now. No, I just peel back so many layers already, and already feeling like, oh, so much more of my life makes so much sense now. And then to peel back it was like this layer was just like a whole onion. You know,
Yeah.
this is just the whole friggin' thing.
Like there's more. I am an infinite onion.
Literally.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It feels really good to have that connect, and it's so crazy how powerful just understanding it is.
Oh yeah.
You know, like so many people don't understand therapy, ironically enough, but it's wild, the kind of power just understanding why something is the way that it is. Actually, that's one of my favorite quotes. It is the solution is found in the problem.
Yep.
And so basically it's saying that the better you understand the problem, the closer you are to the solution.
Yeah.
And that was actually a quote in the context of business, which is also true.
It's also good for math.
True.
Math.
Math. Also good for math. Yeah, is that's literally how therapy works. Is like the better you understand the problem, oh, there's a solution, and all of a sudden all these pathways connect, and you're like,
Oh yeah.
I can operate suddenly
Yeah.
in this newfound power that I have because my pathways connect now.
God, I 100% agree with that. It's like the last few years of going through after getting my anxiety disorder diagnosis and realizing like this is why I lack any sort of ability to function for myself at all.
Yeah.
And then connecting the dots back to even like my early, like 5 years old, and I left, this is one of the memories that for me that sticks out. I left a chair in my mom's closet because I had needed it to stand. I can't remember. I was young. I was grabbing something out of the closet, and I dragged a chair in there, and I didn't put it away. And my mom came through the house asking who had left the chair in there. And I lied about it because I was just so desperately terrified of getting in trouble. My mom is a wonderful woman. Like she would never have, she was asking because you're a parent trying to teach children that whenever you take something out of its place, you put it back when you're done. But I was so infinitely scared of disappointing her and getting in trouble at the age of 5 that I chose to lie about it instead. And that sticks out to me as being one moment that I can point my finger at and being like, I was an incredibly anxious child. And it's taken me up until the age of 28. I was 25 or 26 when I got my anxiety disorder diagnosis, but it's still taken me this many years and I know I have many, many more years to go of digging through all of that and even understanding how this has affected me at that age, at 5 years old, that it goes that deep. So yeah, the solution is found in the problem. You have to dig into it.
Yeah.
And it's scary and it can be really messy and
It's so messy.
and it can be really hard, but I am a very strong believer that you are always better off for having done the work.
Absolutely. And that is the number one thing that I would say if you're starting therapy, or maybe you've been in therapy or you're considering it, the hardest part about it is that there are some points where you've dug up so much. It's almost like it's
confusing. Like you just feel, I've gone through several periods in my journey of mental and emotional and physical healing, that I just like during this period, especially, I just felt confused. Like the past 3 weeks, guys, I felt so confused. I just wanted to cry like all the time because I just felt confused. I was like, I feel this way, but I also feel this way, but like this doesn't make sense for the interests and the passions that I have, like, and everything was just like conflicting each other, and it just didn't make sense, and it was just confusing. And that just meant that there was more to press into at that point, which thankfully I did. And thankfully I even gave myself, I think if I was more distracted than I was at that time, that I wouldn't have come to this conclusion as soon as I came to it. But the fact that I did, by nature of all of it, kind of push off a lot of responsibilities, that I was able to give myself space to just kind of think through these problems, if nothing else, you know, and come to a conclusion of sorts.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm super proud of you for being transparent and wanting to share that with not only Katie and I, but with whoever else happens to listen to this. That, I mean, it's huge. It's huge. And I understand the need, the almost like need and drive to share it, because it feels like Katie was saying, a holy moment. It feels like such a powerful thing that you almost can't not share it.
You can't not share
Totally.
it.
Yeah. And so it's kind of incredible that in the midst of all of this, the past year, that you've been going through a lot of these things, that you now have an avenue to share it in a way that not even just with the two of us, who I know already I've got things I've learned from you and you telling your story that I'll take with me in my journey, but also ideally that there's other people out there who are going to benefit from hearing your story.
Yeah.
thanks.
It's been really brave.
I really appreciate just like the friends that you guys are, honestly. Like just that I feel really comfortable to share this with you. But it was really funny last night. It was like literally right after I had that conversation, I was like, I feel like I need to share this on the podcast. And I texted you guys literally while I was still clearing the tears from my eyes.
Yeah. You sent that text message. I was like, I want to know right now.
I know.
I was like sending messages. I was like sort of pseudo asking what you're trying to talk about while also not asking.
Yeah.
I was like, can you just give us a hint? Because I need to know what I'm preparing for.
And I specifically didn't.
I know.
Yeah, because
my anxiety was a little upset about that.
I know. I specifically didn't talk about it while you guys were eating or anything before we started recording, because I was like, I feel like once it starts, it won't stop, and I'll just share the whole thing with you before we even hit record.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just gonna wait. I can do it. And I felt really compelled to. So I do hope that it helps any of you guys to find yourself a little bit more. In any way.
Yeah.
Find your inner child and reparent that little boy or little girl.
Yeah, because I didn't even know mine was still in there. I was like, mine ran away a long time ago.
It was hard for me to believe I had one, because I absolutely believe I was born at the age of 84. So I was like, what little child? I was never a kid.
You know what? If you met Madeline, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're like, you were born at 84. But then you're also like, it's my trauma showing.
Yeah. That's the most Madeline thing that's ever Madeline.
Oh man, if my name was gonna be a verb, then there it is. All right, well, thanks guys for joining us for this episode. Promise we'll have a couple of fun ones coming up. I know this was an excellent episode. It wasn't a heavy one at all, I don't feel like, but for some people who might be feeling stuck in the weeds a little bit, ideally this is something that helps push you towards something that will give you that peace and just remember not to chase the resolve, like Delana was warning against. Sometimes even just the clarity is all you need. So go to therapy.
Please.
And
go listen to one of our funner episodes.
Literally the entire world would be a better place if we all went to therapy. So
I know.
Everybody go to therapy, even
Go
if
to
you think you don't
therapy.
need to.
Step outside for a little bit and get some fresh air. Wear your sunscreen.
Drink your water.
Be kind to yourself.
Bye.
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 Thanks so much for hanging out with us again for this week's episode of the Womanly Podcast. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media to hang out with us in between episodes and see pieces of our conversations that we don't get to include in these episodes, plus all of our bloopery humanness. We're on Instagram at Womanly Pod and TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at Womanly Podcast. We hope to hang out with you more there. Have a super womanly week.